There are certain Torah portions in the scroll behind me that have simple, inspirational messages or a series of compassionate and just laws or a story of family struggle and growth. This is not that kind of Torah portion. Nathan has taken on Matot Maseh, a double portion at the end of the book of Numbers, whose themes could give a young student or an older rabbi intellectual, moral, and spiritual whiplash. Taking on those themes is not for the faint of heart. Thank goodness, though, having seen Nathan at the end of a ski rope, I know he knows how to hold on for the ride, and he's unafraid of sharp twists and turns. These final chapters of the book of Numbers begin with a fairly detailed description of a campaign of vengeance that the Israelites perpetrate against the Midianites. This includes instructions to slaughter every single man that they encounter when they invade, to capture women and children, to burn towns to the ground, and then the callous icing on the cake, they are to count their spoils, which according to the Torah includes 32,000 human beings who would now be in the possession of their captors. And this number, among all the tallying of these spoils, the livestock that they gain and the gold and silver, is reported with a tone of triumph. But then the Torah pivots to a more intimate discussion between the heads of the tribes of Israel who are preparing to enter Canaan, in which they hear the case of two of the tribes, Gad and Reuben, who have found a patch of land on the east side of the Jordan upon which they would like to settle. Hearing their case, Moses finally grants them permission to remain behind as long as during the settling they pledge their support to the rest of the people when they enter the land. This lobbying vignette represents an honest discussion and an acknowledgement from the halls of power that people deserve the opportunity to choose their fate. And then the remarkable legal precedent that Rabbi Greenstein discussed last night in his sermon, this parsha goes on to describe the importance of having cities of refuge in this new land. These 6 cities, a priority for the Israelites when they actually enter, are meant to be a shelter for a person who is fleeing the angry family of someone that person has killed. The asylum seeker is entitled, the Torah tells us, to a place to be kept safe from this family retribution while evidence is heard. This series of laws is meant to give this manslayer a chance to tell his story, to share the tale of what might have been just a terrible accident, not done with malice, and for the community to grant a second chance to this individual and to protect him. The idea that this person deserves the community's care, that anger and vengeance should not be the forces that determine justice, is a remarkably insightful and compassionate system. And finally, the parsha includes a return to the instance about the 5 brave daughters of Zelophehad, of who I believe Maddie studied for her bat mitzvah 4 years ago, who had courageously stood up for their rights and demanded that Moses change the system of inheritance so that they are able to be heirs to their father's holdings. The further detail of this systemic change are charted in this portion that Nathan has been studying, and the women mostly hold on to their newly gained freedom to inherit. It's not perfect, but it is most definitely a step forward from where we were a few chapters ago. There is no doubt that brutality and vengeance appear in this parasha. But there is also no doubt that a spirit of justice and compassion appear in this portion. There is at once the conviction that people who have been enemies once will always be so, and at the same time, the conviction that people deserve second chances and a chance to tell their stories and be heard by the community. A Torah portion like this can be read and has been read with many different lenses, and there is no shortage of commentary on the nuances of these passages, each one that I shared, and they're not the only ones in it, a chapter long. But taken as a whole, it does not emerge through my rabbinic eyes so much as a rule book for exactly how we should live and be, as it does a mirror of all the different ways that we are. In this instance, as in many, many others, the Torah is a mirror showing us a myriad of ways that human beings are in the world, and even the spectrum of behaviors that one person might even exhibit. We are stubborn sometimes, vengeful sometimes, compassionate sometimes, good listeners sometimes, bulldozers sometimes, sensitive sometimes, brave sometimes, and our life of journeys is an opportunity to shape and mold our own characters and choose from among all the ways we are, the ways that we want to continue to be. A continual process of refinement of heart and spirit, a mining away for the best in us, is a process that is modeled in our Torah and even modeled by God, who, lest we forget, has to make a second set of 10 commandments and even tries to recreate the world a couple of times. As Nathan stands before us today to read from the Torah scroll, I hope he and each of us will remember that Judaism is about a path and not a destination. And our Torah shows us all of those wrong turns as well as the high points along the way. As we enter, as a Jewish community, a period of spiritual preparation for the high holidays coming in only a few short weeks, let none of us forget that the mistakes of the past don't have to dictate our future, and that our God-given reflection has always been, as evidenced by this mirror behind me, one of a beautiful and broken humanity, striving to grow and learn in the world. And may that be one of the blessings we gain from this week's parashah.